When do you think that's going to be the major conversation, like hormone replacement therapy?
I don't know. I wish I had that answer because it's the question I ask quite often.
Yeah.
Is why? Why in med school do we not have a week or so training in thyroid, right? Because it is the master gland, because it controls so much. So next up is...
I'm Dr. Esra Çavuşoğlu, and I've been living a sober life for the past 19 years. My battle with addiction drove me to seek new methods, devices, and supplements to improve my physical and mental performance, enhance my quality of life, and ultimately live healthier for longer. From my experiences in addiction recovery, biohacking, and longevity to the latest global developments, from groundbreaking entrepreneurs to expert academics, the conversations I've had over the years are now featured weekly on Soberhead Podcast. Welcome to Soberhead Podcast. This week, we're going straight to the powerhouse of your metabolism with my guest, Dr. Amie Hornaman, the Thyroid Fixer. In the next hour, you'll learn why millions walk around tired, foggy, and gaining weight while their lab slips says normal. Amie explains how autoimmune Hashimoto silently attacks the gland, why a single TSH number is just a teaser, and how adding free T3 and free T4 to your panel can change everything. Most of all, Amie arms you with the questions and data you need to advocate proper testing and treatment, because better thyroid care shouldn't be an insider secret. Grab your notebook and hit play. Your blueprint for thriving with a healthy thyroid starts now. A huge amount of people who watch Soberhead frequently are not subscribed. So I will ask you a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button now, because when you subscribe, it helps us to make the show better and provides better access to the world-leading experts. I'd like to thank Gedik University and Gedik Foundation for their trust in Soberhead Podcast. With their support, it is possible for us to bring you this content at this quality for absolutely free. Our host for this episode is .sub, the space, community, and platform where creatives, experts, and entrepreneurs come together at the meeting point of continents, the Bosphorus. Follow the link in the show notes for more information about events and membership. Subscribe, like, and share, and I promise to continue to bring you a better Soberhead every day. Dr. Amie Hornaman, finally we're together and we're going to talk about something super important. And yet again, one more thing that it hits home for me, for my mom, for my sister. And we're going to listen to your story, but let me give a little snip of my story. For years, I took Synthroid, like many years ago, and nothing was changing. I wasn't experiencing any of these symptoms, maybe the shedding hair or, my eyebrows are half gone. But definitely, I wasn't able to probably lose weight as much as I want. I didn't lack energy. Until my dear friend, Dr. Susan Blank, she's a very well-known psychiatrist, but also studies in functional medicine after the fact when she saw how she needs to learn that side of the medicine as well to treat her patients. She says well, nobody tested your free T3. And then after that, the journey started. It says that 9 to 11% of people within the United States has hypothyroidism.
Okay.
I'm sure these numbers are not accurate, but it's still high. Women has 5 to 8 times more than men, and it's approximately 1 in 8 women. Then I started, asking cute questions like what should be the best levels, why doctors are not looking into the free T3 and so on and so forth. Even ChatGPT weren't encouraging the audience like me saying you have to look. I had to dig in and saying so how about if I go to a functional medicine doctor, what should be the best levels? So the general consent, even though you guys are screaming on top of your lung, all the functional doctors, most of them, let's say.
Right.
It's still, the ChatGPT still says that, the normal things is to look to TSH and T4, unless it's necessary to look into T3. Since I laid the ground, we're going to talk all things about thyroid, and welcome again. I'm sure you're going to be an amazing educator, but your story starts like my story and every other people that really want to help people, you struggle yourself, yeah?
Right. And that's actually what I was going to comment on the stats, is that they're not taking into account the millions and millions of people that are undiagnosed. So when you see a stat, just like here, you read off some really great stats, and I do agree with the 1 in 8 women. Here it's estimated that around 60 million Americans have hypothyroidism, but 30 million, like half of that, are undiagnosed. And I see that all the time, and that's exactly what happened to me, is I saw 6 different doctors before actually receiving the diagnosis. So I often say, what if I would have stopped at doctor number 4 or doctor number 5 and accepted what 4 or 5 white coats told me as truth, that I was normal and everything was fine? Then I wouldn't be sitting here with you today, because I would never know that I actually had hypothyroidism. So many are undiagnosed as well.
You know, it's always moving to hear the real life story, why you got into that.
Sure.
If you don't mind sharing it, because it's very moving. It's a real, you know, and I'm sure there's so many people are struggling with it.
So many. So my story started many years ago, 20-some years ago. And it was back in my 20s when I was competing in figure competitions. I was doing fitness modeling, and I had taken care of my body, and I knew how my body would respond to each time that I would prep for a show. Now, for the listeners, what I mean by that is when you are competing at that level, you are basically taking your body into a very low body fat percent. And that's to step on stage in a bikini, which actually sounds ludicrous when I say it out loud. What was I thinking? Or to step in front of the camera for the modeling part. And what was happening is this one particular show, the scale was going up. Now, when you're eating chicken, broccoli, fish, asparagus, you're going to the gym twice a day, you're doing all the things, just like many of the listeners right now. They're watching what they're eating. They're cleaning up their diet. They're avoiding processed foods and sugars and pesticides, and they're going organic, and they're going gluten-free, and they're working out, and they're walking, and they're meditating, and they're deep breathing, and they're literally doing all the things, but they're seeing the scale go up instead of down like they wanted to. So my body just kept putting on fat, and it biologically, it didn't make sense. Even if you don't believe in calories in, calories out, when I say what I was doing, chicken, broccoli, fish, asparagus, going to the gym twice a day, that would naturally warrant a reduction in weight, because even the calories were lower than what I was expending, but it didn't. And this is all because the thyroid is the master gland and controls our metabolism. Now, I didn't know that at the time. So I went to my doctor, because that's where we all start. We start with our local doctor, a doctor that we know, a doctor that's been seeing us over and over again for years. I naturally went there first and said, hey, doc, here's what's going on. You know, the scale is now up 25 pounds in a very short amount of time. This was in a 6 to 8 week time frame. And I handed him the paper. I said, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm eating. Here's how I'm working out. Here's how I am taking care of myself right now. He looked at whatever test he ran, which is most likely the TSH, which we can talk about. And he said, you're normal. Everything is fine. So I left there and I thought, no, I don't accept that. I don't feel fine. This isn't normal for me whatsoever. I know my body and I know how it's supposed to respond. And I felt like my body was literally rebelling against me. So I went to doctor number 2, and then doctor number 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6. I heard different medical gaslighting terms from each and every one of them. Eat less and exercise more, which was literally impossible for me to do at that point. I heard that it's all in your head. I heard, 25 pounds, that's not that bad. One of my doctors pointed to a BMI chart and said, see, this is where you're landing. It's not so bad after all. You're just like the rest of America. So I left that appointment because he was a metabolic specialist, i.e. endocrinologist. And I remember sitting in my car, putting my head on the steering wheel and crying. And this entire time I was begging and pleading with God, please give me a diagnosis. Give me a name for this. Give me anything that will explain why my body was flipping me the bird, basically, rebelling against me no matter what I did. So I went to the 7th doctor. I kept going. Went to doctor number 7, and finally someone touched my throat and said, swallow. No other doctor had done that. The 6 doctors before didn't even touch me. They were going by lab work, whatever that lab work was that they did. to give me my normal diagnosis. Well, this doctor touches my throat. She goes, I'm feeling something on your thyroid. And per the test that we ran, it looks like you have hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's. We're going to do an ultrasound to confirm, but here's a pill. Oh my gosh, Ezra, I was so excited. I left that office. I'm like, yes, now I have a name for what's going on with me. And now I have a pill that's going to fix me. And that pill was T4. It was Synthroid. And I gave it 5 months. And it wasn't working. And I wasn't losing any weight. And I wasn't feeling any better. And I was still losing hair. And I was still tired. So I start doctor Googling. And I see, wait, this T4, this is the inactive thyroid hormone. There's other active thyroid hormones out there. There's T2, there's T3. So I go back to her and I go, I keep reading about this, how T4 and T3 pair up really nicely together. You're using the inactive thyroid hormone, you sprinkle in some of the active. She goes, I don't do that. That's not standard of care. I said, well, I'm going to find somebody who does. And I kept plugging away and I kept hearing the name of this functional doctor over and over again. And I really do believe that God or the universe tries to tell us something when we hear something over and over again. And so I said, okay, I'll go. And I made an appointment with him. He spent 90 minutes with me. He ordered labs. So he had this big book of labs that we had done on me. And he's going through the labs and he's asking me, how do you feel? And that's the first time anyone asked me how I was actually feeling and what my symptoms were. So he asked me, how do you feel? And he's piecing together this puzzle and telling me, okay, well, here's what's going on. You don't convert T4 very well because your reverse T3 is high and your free T3 is low. And so we need to do this to help you with conversion. And we need to change up your medication. We need to add in that T3. And literally in that moment, he saved my life. And then the weight started coming off. I started feeling better. He became my mentor. And I completely changed careers because of what I went through. I knew that in my 20s, in a major city with a major hospital system, I still couldn't find help. And I was still being dismissed and misdiagnosed and medically gaslit. So that's why I do what I do now, because I know it's important. And honestly, 20-some years later, we're still in the situation in conventional medicine where doctors are taught one path with the thyroid. You test TSH. If TSH is above a 4.5 is what the cutoff is here in the United States. If TSH is above a 4.5, you give T4, pat them on the ass, send them out the door, wish them good luck, we'll retest you in 6 months. And that is the same standard of care today that it was 20-some years ago. And it's ridiculous.
I have so many questions after how you share your story. But first, what I'm curious about, why hypothyroidism happens? Unless you just have, I saw if you had a surgery and cancer treatment and,
sure,
all these medical things. No, if you don't have no medical terms, if that many people, 60 million, I'm sure they don't have these life-altering experiences.
Well, we can break it down like this. We know that 95% of all hypothyroidism, so low and slow thyroid function, we know that 95% of those people are Hashimoto patients. So that just means that your body thinks that your thyroid gland is a bad guy and it sends out soldiers to attack. So the majority of low and slow thyroid function is autoimmune based. Now, what do we know about autoimmunity? We can use the analogy of that three-legged stool, where one leg, you have that genetic predisposition. So maybe somewhere in your family, your mom, your grandma, your aunt, your sister, just like you shared, you have hypothyroidism in your family. And then that points to that genetic component. Now, you could even have autoimmune in your family. You could have someone that has lupus or MS or type 1 diabetes. You yourself could have psoriasis or eczema, something more minor, maybe Crohn's disease, celiac. Any autoimmune condition sets you up for another autoimmune condition. So we look at that genetic propensity. Then we look at leaky gut is another leg of the stool, which, pretty much 100% of us.
it's on my thing because it seems like it's one of the most watched podcast of yours, why your gut is killing your thyroid. So that's in my questions.
Yeah.
Really?
Who doesn't have leaky gut at this point?
None, we do, but how is it connected?
Well, that sets us up. We call them lipopolysaccharides, but essentially we just call them toxins. Anything from the pesticides on your food to fillers in your supplements or medication to really just all the garbage in our food, like all the chemicals and names that we can't even pronounce. Everything that we are exposed to that goes into our mouth goes through our gut. And when we're exposed to that level of toxicity on an ongoing basis, it starts to break down the walls of the gut. So what we used to think was basically tile and grout and impermeable lining of the gut, we now know it's more like a passageway. It's more like a door that will open and shut. So when we're being exposed to all those toxins, those toxins will open the door and they will permeate and go into the system, into your blood. Then that becomes systemic. It starts affecting other areas of your body, producing inflammation. Because essentially, those toxins were supposed to be contained to the gut, processed, and passed out. But instead, they're getting through and they're getting into the bloodstream. So that alone can trigger autoimmunity. But then we have that third leg of the stool, and that is a stressor. So that could be pregnancy, which is a beautiful, wonderful, natural thing that women do, but it's a huge stressor on the body because of the hormonal roller coaster that accompanies it. It could be perimenopause and menopause, another time in a woman's life where she's on a hormonal roller coaster. It could be like I went through excessive dieting and exercise. I was putting my body through a stressor. And even though I loved it and it fueled me and it was fun, it was still a stressor on the body. Over-exercising, under-eating, huge stressor on the body. It could be an eating disorder. It could be going through something like chemotherapy or radiation, which can directly impact the thyroid, but it's also a stressor on the body that can trigger autoimmune. So when we have that third leg of the stool activated, that's what flips the switch for autoimmunity. So that's why I often use the term thyropause. And I define that as when your thyroid gland craps the bed after the age of 40 due to fluctuating hormones. My argument is that every single woman, just like she goes through menopause and perimenopause, will also go through some form of thyropause, where her thyroid will slow down because of those fluctuating hormones that that naturally occur, that we all go through in perimenopause and menopause.
What I understand, it's actually very sensitive, even though it's a master gland, but it's also very sensitive that can be affected from so many things.
The thyroid, yes, it is. It's very, very sensitive. It's very sensitive. And our immune system is very sensitive. So when it's kind of like a bucket that's overflowing. We can take just so much stress. We can take just so much toxin exposure. And at some point, the bucket fills up and it starts flowing over. And at that point, it's when our bodies are like, okay, time out, enough. We can't handle this anymore. And that's where your immune system literally becomes confused. And Hashimoto's is very, very common. It's a very common autoimmune condition, and it's very common among women.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Hashimoto. I don't know much about it, but my audience keeps sending me questions because sometimes I post on Instagram, what would you like to know? And then a bunch of Hashimoto question comes. I have hypothyroidism, but I don't think I have Hashimoto. My sister had at some point, or she had a temporary Hashimoto, and actually I was living in New York back then. So the name is kind of familiar from back then, but I don't know much about it.
So Hashimoto's, the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism, I love using analogies. So if you picture that you have these soldiers in your body and they are preconditioned or they've been trained to think that your thyroid is an invader, it's a bad guy, it's the enemy. And then those soldiers will go out and regularly attack what they believe is the enemy. So if you think about this across all autoimmune conditions, we can say, okay, you have these soldiers that attack your joints, that's rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. You have these soldiers that attack the villi in your small intestine, that's celiac disease. So this is no different. It's these soldiers that are going out and they are attacking your thyroid gland. Now, when you attack something, it's going to become inflamed. It's also not going to work really well. And I always joke and I say, listen, if I came to your house every day, Ezra, and I beat you up with a baseball bat, which I promise I won't do, you're probably not going to be the best podcast host. You're not going to be the best business owner. You're not going to be the best spouse. You're not going to be the best partner. You're not going to be the best friend. You're going to be tired and you're just going to want to lay around. You're going to feel beat up and you're just not going to produce like you do when you're feeling great. And that's the same thing with the thyroid. When it's getting beaten up, how can it produce the amount of thyroid hormone that our body needs when it's getting beaten up every single day? And then there are things that we do, i.e. gluten exposure, more exposure to toxins, mold exposure, stress, eating poorly. There are things that we do to actually launch that attack and to build our soldiers and to build the army. So the ultimate goal would be to reduce those soldiers down to zero. Now, when I say soldiers, what do I mean? We can actually test for this. So we look at thyroid peroxidase and thyroglobulin antibodies. So for you, that would be my question. Because there's this, what I'm hearing is this really strong lineage in your family where thyroid conditions have presented themselves. Have you had your TPO and your TGA antibodies tested every single time you had labs?
No, actually, tomorrow morning, I'm going to have a full lab work done, and I'm going to be adding them myself, even if I'm not asked about. But how do you fix Hashimoto?
Okay, well, this is kind of multifold. So number one, yes, our goal is to push those antibodies to zero. Now, we can do this by going gluten-free, cleaning up our lifestyle, controlling for stress, looking at any underlying infections. So things like Epstein-Barr virus, which pretty much we all have, that can trigger Hashimoto's, any kind of Lyme disease, mold exposure, that can really flip that switch and actually build your army. So our goal, if you have that army, is to get it down to zero so that when we test the TPO and the TGA antibodies, they're coming in at zero. Now, the other thing that we can do is add in two really amazing supplements and medication. So the supplement is black cumin seed oil. So this is what I actually put in my Hashimoto's fixer in my supplement line because it has been proven over and over again to reduce antibodies, specifically for Hashimoto's, but for all autoimmune conditions across the board. It lowers inflammation. And then it's one of the only supplements, ingredients, nutrients that we can say is cancer preventative. So it actually helps your body prevent cancer. Now, it's not the only thing that we do to prevent cancer, obviously, but it's one tool in our arsenal that we can put in. So black cumin seed oil is amazing. Next up would be low-dose naltrexone. Now, this is a prescription. It has to be compounded by a compounding pharmacy. But low-dose naltrexone, or LDN, absolutely amazing. Does very similar things to black cumin, where it lowers inflammation, it lowers antibodies, it helps across the board with all autoimmunity.
Let's jump into my situation from the beginning a little bit. I'll tell you, and we can unfold it from there for audience to know what are the best levels to be, because I know that you have these levels also on your Instagram account. So people, when they watch this, they know when they look what to test and what to look after. But, it took a very long time for my previous doctor and friend to fix my thyroid. Oh, my God. I mean, first I started having armored thyroid. We saw that I wasn't able to break that. So there was not much changes in the levels, even though I was on a high dose. Then we started using nature thyroid and we started being compounded. And then from there, probably it took us like 4 years or something to be able to figure out how much I need until to have the best level for free T3. By the way, we didn't even pay attention to T4 or whatnot. But while we were trying to fix T3, the TSH was going down and down and down at a point that's 0.1. Because, and some people cares about it, some people don't care. I kind of get into arguments with the endocrinologist in Turkey. And I said, you know what, Susan says it's okay. And she goes like, okay, then go ask Susan. Don't ask me. Let me then ask you the question. What are the tests that people needs to do to have a good picture of what their thyroid looks like? Yes. And then what should be the levels?
And what are the optimal levels? So, beautiful question. You started with TSH. So I'm going to comment on that because that is the most commonly run test when we're looking at thyroid function. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a brain hormone. It's not a thyroid hormone. So when we understand what it is, we can better assess whether or not to pay attention to it. Now, TSH, when it's up, it's one of the only markers on your labs where high means low, meaning the higher that TSH goes, the lower your thyroid, the lower and slower your thyroid is functioning. So if TSH is screaming at us at a 5, at a 6, at a 7, we go, okay, well, obviously this person has hypothyroidism. But what if it's lower? Or what if it is, like you said, below a 0? Do we worry about that? No, we really don't. We have to look at it in the context of the whole person, and we have to look at the other labs to get the full picture. You cannot get the full picture just by testing TSH. You can't. So in functional medicine, we like TSH below a 2. Now, just like you said, there are some practitioners out there that will have 2 as the upper limit, but then they'll put like a 0.5 or a 1 as the lower limit. I don't have a lower limit because here's the thing. If we have you on Nature-Throid, if we have you on NP or Armour, if we have you on T3 of any kind, liothyronine, Cytomel, that is naturally going to lower your TSH. That's what's going to happen. And even someone on crappy T4 only, which doesn't work, if they're on enough of it, that too will lower your TSH because it's basically sending a message to the brain to say, you know, there's enough thyroid hormone in the body. It's cool. You don't have to yell or poke the thyroid. You can just sit back and relax and not say a thing, meaning that TSH goes down. Now, in order to get that full picture, we have to keep going. So the next test is free T4. This is another very unimportant test. I really don't care about it because the bottom line is if you have too much free T4, the inactive thyroid hormone, chances are very good that you're going to have an elevated reverse T3. So I'll bounce to that next. Reverse T3 is the anti-thyroid hormone. So when we're taking too much T4 medication, if you are a non-converter like I am, if you have genetic issues of converting T4 to T3, or if you have anything going on, I always say that conversion of T4 to T3 is like running 10 Tough Mudders. It's really hard for your body to do. So if you have insulin resistance or estrogen dominance, if you're low in vitamin D, selenium, iodine, magnesium, if you're high in cortisol because you're stressed out, if you're low in cortisol because you have adrenal burnout, then you're going to have elevated reverse T3. And what that's going to do is it's going to prevent T3, the active thyroid hormone, from actually getting to the cell to do its job. So next up is free T3. We want to know how much of that active thyroid hormone you have in your body ready to be taken up by the cell, ready to be that like lock and key mechanism. If you think of T3 as the key, and every single cell in your body has a lock for that T3, that key has to go into the lock and turn it to give you a metabolism, to grow your hair, to light up your brain, to let you poop every day. We need that T3. So going back to the optimal ranges, reverse T3, I want to see below 12. And if you're in a different country, we simplify it and we say, cut that standard range you see for the reverse T3, cut it in half. And I want you to be below that halfway mark. For free T3, we want you in the upper quadrant of the range. So this is universal. It works for any lab value, wherever you are in the world. You want to take that standard lab value range, the thing that you see off to the side of your result. You'll always see something called a reference range or a standard lab value range. So you want to take that range, cut it into 4 parts. And I want you in the upper 4th or over for your free T3, that active thyroid hormone. And then the TPO and the TGA antibodies, like we mentioned, those tests for Hashimoto's, we want those at 0.
Basically, when the normal endocrinologist, probably, the good ones pay attention, unless they may not be a functional medicine doctor, but the good ones may be paying attention, but also they may not. The problem is, let's say in Turkey, we don't have the T3 hormones available. We have only pharmaceutical levels, I think, for people who do not have their thyroid, I would assume. Because I had a chat with the endocrinologist here, because it's very difficult for me to bring in these medications. And it's not just me, it's the whole family. So I'm like T3 smuggler at this point. But, I have to. But, when I asked him, he says, like, we have it, but it is like some high numbers, he says. I quite don't know, but like 2 milligram or 3 milligram. I'm making shit up at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, what he told me is what they have is like one dose, and that dose is specific thyroid illnesses that sounded like thyroid cancer or thyroid something. So it's not like a regular day-to-day application.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand that, because thyroid hormone treatment really needs to be customized. It needs to be nuanced to that individual. So if you have someone like myself, where I do not convert at all my T4 to T3, I require T3 only treatment, which I'm not going to be able to obtain in NDT, because we know that Armour, Nature-Throid, NP Thyroid, that's 80% T4 and around 20% T3, roughly. But it still contains more T4 than it does T3. Yeah. So if you give that to me, what's going to happen is my reverse T3 is going to go up. Now, let me just expand a little bit more on reverse T3.
Sure.
I want you to think of it as your hibernation hormone. So there's actually a study out that talks about something called human dormancy syndrome. And it basically says that when reverse T3 is high, and then free T3 can be low or high. It doesn't matter. So even if you have enough of the T3 active thyroid hormone in your blood, if reverse is high, it's going to block it from getting to the cell. So what ends up happening is when that reverse T3 is high, it puts our body into a hibernation mode, like a bear in the middle of winter. And everything shuts down. So metabolism slows down, your brain function slows down, your mood goes down, your digestion slows. Think of everything slowing down to a halt. Body temperature drops, heart rate drops. So when that occurs, and we're walking around trying to live a normal life, and we can't because we feel like we're in hibernation, that's a problem. So that's what my body does if you give me any T4. So for there not to be T3 only available, I don't care what country you're in, that's medical malpractice. That you can do more harm to a person than good if they are a T3 only person like myself.
Yeah, but we don't even have Nature Thyroid, Armour Thyroid. We have none of them. We only have Synthroid. I met one doctor, and she was very confident of herself that she can fix the T3 problem with selenium. Is that accurate?
I mean, selenium is just one of those core nutrients, cofactors that are required by your thyroid to help convert, but it's one small piece of the puzzle. You need selenium, you need magnesium, you need iodine, you need vitamin D, you need your insulin to be in check, you need your hormones balanced, you need your cortisol checked. So it's like one piece of a 100-piece puzzle.
Let's say that, you have all these supplements. Would it still take the place of the T3 hormone?
No, not at all.
That's actually what was my question.
No. It's going to help, but it's not going to be the be-all, end-all, and it's not going to take the place of T3.
Yeah, this thyroid problem is a big problem. Let me then now jump into another thing that we were just talking before the episode. I started with a new doctor, and she's really amazing. When we were going through my blood work, I think the concern was the amounts that I'm taking, and yet still my T3 is not at a great level, and TSH is so low. She wanted to do a switch from Nature Thyroid to NP Thyroid.
It's kind of a lateral move, though.
I have no idea. I mean, and I did.
Okay.
But
how'd you feel?
I'm going to be adding it. So, like you said, and I had an operation like 8 weeks ago, and I was like, I'm still muscly, I'm able to work out now. But, what I started seeing is that, I'm going up on the scale and I'm eating less. And I'm like, okay, that's not cool. It's summer's beginning now, and I'm not able to button my jeans and stuff. And then I just turned and I looked at the levels, and I'm on like a half dose of what I was taking. But I don't have the fatigue. I don't have hair loss. I don't have any of these. But maybe if I would let this sit enough, that would happen down the road. I have no idea how long it takes these switch of the medication start showing itself as a negative. And I'm not the only one, I guess, because I was listening to Dr. Tanya's podcast. It seems like she also switched in between medications and start feeling like, oh, I'm putting weight on. And then she just goes back to the old thing. Sometimes I think doctors would like to try different ways to see if it is actually, I have to add more. This doctor who I'm seeing, she goes like, maybe your pituitary gland is not working. So then we will not care at all about the TSH, and then I would bombard you with T3. I had even an MRI of the specific the pituitary gland. It's working. So there's no problem over there. So I'm like, okay, then yesterday I sent her an email. I said, we need to talk. I need labs. I'm pretty sure it's the thyroid because I was studying for our podcast. So I'm not educated.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, where do we start there? First of all, the only time I'll change medications on someone is if they're not doing well on them. So it's kind of like if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If you're on a med that you were feeling good and you were a nice steady weight on, we wouldn't change that. But now the interesting thing that I would love to know about you, have you had your reverse T3 tested? Do they test it over there?
Yeah, they do, but I'm not sure if we tested or not. You know, sometimes it's certain numbers is like difficult for me to follow, and thyroid was one of them until this conversation. But tomorrow I'm going to be seeing that as well, because I'm not sure if that's the reason she maybe did the change, but it doesn't matter. You know, I still am taking NP thyroid. There's the T4 in it.
Right. So that's what I was saying earlier. It's a lateral move. So you just moved from like a nature thyroid to an NP. Both are considered natural desiccated thyroid medications. So both are going to be that roughly 80-20 split of T4 to T3. Now, I have found in my practice as well that there are certain patients, we don't have nature thyroid over here anymore, but we have Armour and we have NP. So I will find that there are certain subsets of people that do better on Armour, not as well on NP, certain people that do better on NP and not Armour. You know, on paper, they're very, very similar, but in our bodies, everybody's body is unique. And so it might react differently. And there might be certain nuances. The manufacturer could put a filler in this one and not in that one, and you're reacting to the filler, which is why you don't feel as good. However, what I would say for you is, and I love that you're learning on this journey. It's like you know that you have a thyroid problem, so you decide to go out and do the research and interview experts and almost kind of learn as you go. And so with this, I want you to make sure that they are testing your reverse T3 tomorrow. Because if you're gaining weight, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, she's not converting all of this T4 very well. You know, there's something going on, and if your dose didn't change, if it was a lateral dose move.
No, dose was half.
So you went from...
it was like I take my thyroid pills twice. One in the morning, one in the afternoon. I like literally half, because I looked on the bottle and I looked at the compounded nature thyroid, and it's just like, it makes like 0 sense. No, that's normal what I'm going through. So as of today, I'm doubling the NP thyroid, because the double that I'm going to be taking is going to be equal to what I was taking.
Oh my goodness. By all means, you should absolutely be on the same dose.
Yeah.
So that kind of move, you want to literally go from the dose that you were on to the same dose that you were on, because then you don't know what's broken if something breaks. Right now, we don't know, is it the medication itself that you're not reacting to, or is it the dose that was decreased when she switched you over? So right off the bat, yes, go back to the original dose, increase the NP to what you were taking with the nature thyroid. But I still want you to get that reverse T3 tested, because that's going to be interesting to see if you properly convert all of that T4 into T3.
Again, I'm going back for people who are really not, there's no T3 hormones here. So what do they do?
Oh, it's so hard. Okay, so short of self-sourcing, one way or another, figuring out what you can do. So this is where T2 can come in. So T2 is 3,5-diodo-L-thymine. And in the United States, and I've not seen a country yet that requires T2 by prescription. So to my knowledge, you can obtain this in supplemental form. Like I put T2 into my Thyroid Fixer, Metabolism Fixer. We ship most places. I'm not positive about Turkey, but we ship most places in the world. T2 works very much like T3. It's a very, very strong, potent thyroid hormone. Now, the difference between T2 and T3, well, first of all, T2 will increase your basal metabolic rate. So it will help you burn fat. It will help with your metabolism. It will help with energy because it works at the mitochondrial level to produce ATP. So that's number one. We also see T2 as being an exercise mimetic, meaning that it will, well, what does exercise do? It helps us with our insulin resistance, helps us with fatty liver, helps us with our lipids, our cholesterol. It helps us to build muscle, it helps us to burn body fat. So when we look at the profile of T2, it also does all of that. It helps with insulin sensitivity. It helps with fatty liver disease. It helps to lower cholesterol. It helps to preserve muscle instead of burning muscle. Now, here's the kicker with T3. As much as I love it, it's the active thyroid hormone. I'm on it, but it doesn't differentiate between burning fat and muscle. It will burn both because it's increasing metabolism of burning of anything, whereas T2 really targets fat and it leaves muscle alone. So we're actually seeing increased muscle protein synthesis when someone takes T2 and they preserve their muscle instead of burn it. So that's the beauty of T2. It also does not have a negative feedback loop. So we talked earlier about that low TSH. And there are some doctors out there, most of them, luckily not yours, but most of them, that would look at a low TSH and go, oh my gosh, Ezra, you're hyperthyroid. We need to pull all of your thyroid medication. And then they would do that, and then you'd be 20 pounds heavier next month. Because you weren't hyper, because they were only going by the TSH. And then when we take T3, that is the natural thing that occurs. We already talked about that. If you take even a little bit of T3, your TSH is going to go down. Well, T2 does not do that. It doesn't have a feedback loop onto the thyroid. So it's not going to change your labs to where your doctor will say, oh my gosh, you're hyperthyroid now. Give me all that T3. You're not taking this anymore. So that is an option. That is a viable option for anyone in Turkey or any country that does not have T3 itself available. You could use T2.
Believe me, I was so freaking out, and someone is coming from America like in a couple of days. I placed the order right away to Thyroid Fixer. I said, I need some support like ASAP. How long it takes things to go back to normal? Normally like 6 weeks, like normal hormone thing?
Yeah, everyone's different. I find that with my patients, it's really across the board. Some people will notice a difference in a few weeks. You know, they'll go, oh my gosh, my energy's up. My clothes are fitting better. Like the inflammation is down. That water retention that we have with hypothyroidism goes down. And then other people really need to use it about 2 to 3 months. So when we look at any hormone, whether it's thyroid hormone, progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, it takes 3 months for that to really build up to a peak optimal level in our body. So then when I have somebody, even if they're taking vitamin D and they're like, well, I'm not seeing results fast enough. Go, you've only been on it for a month and a half. You got to give it at least 3 months and then we'll test and we'll see where your vitamin D level is. Well, same thing with hormones, same thing with supplements, same thing with T2. You really have to give it a good 3 months for it to build up in your system.
I read somewhere that one of these thyroid hormones is related to osteoporosis. TSH being high, maybe?
Yeah, that's false, actually. So it's TSH being low. Yeah.
Low, sorry.
So one of the
TSH being low is related to osteoporosis.
So in addition to a doctor saying, oh my gosh, Ezra, you're hyperthyroid, give me your thyroid medication, this is bad. They're also going to say, and you're going to get osteoporosis, and you're going to lose bone, and you're going to have a heart attack. And all of that is not true. Now, here's the thing. If we have a 75-year-old lady who she doesn't do any weight-bearing exercise. She never picks up a weight. She's very, very inactive. She's sitting around a lot. She's not taking her magnesium. She's not taking her vitamin D with K, which is fantastic for bones. She's never been on hormone replacement. She's not on estrogen or progesterone, which also protects her bones. And you give her a boatload of thyroid medication and suppress her TSH. Over the next 5 to 10 years, there's a probability that she will develop osteoporosis if she doesn't have it already, because she's not doing anything to help support her bones. So then that low TSH can affect her bone density. But again, okay, then I'll use myself as an example. I have been T3 only now for 17 years-ish, and I am on a very high dose as well. So I take 75 micrograms of T3 twice a day for a total of 150 micrograms. That's relatively high. I have a couple patients on 200, but I'm one of the higher dosed people that I know. And I take my magnesium, I take my D, I take my D with K. I do weight-bearing exercise. I've gotten a DEXA scan 2 years in a row now. No signs of bone loss. Zero. My TSH is a 0.0007. And it has been that way for about 17 years. That debunks that completely.
I know that you're also like very focused to hormones and like a woman and man hormone and like all hormones. So the symptoms of late stage perimenopause and menopause are kind of similar to hypothyroidism. How do you separate them? Or how does one needs to pay attention, what they should do?
Well, we test it all. So I'm never just testing thyroid. I'm always looking at hormones because we want to look at the full picture and we want to treat everything that we see. So a big red flag for me, especially in the medical system or even in the functional world, is when people will only test and treat hormones. Like, let's say you have a menopausal specialist, and yes, they're over here and they're giving you estradiol, they're giving you progesterone, they're giving you testosterone, but they're ignoring the thyroid, and they're only treating over here. And then the person's like, well, okay, I feel a little bit better. My hot flashes are gone, but I'm still gaining weight. I'm still tired. My hair's still falling out. Well, that's because no one's paying attention to the thyroid over here. I have a theory that we do both at the same time. I call it both and. So yes, we're going to treat both thyroid and hormones at the same time. We're not going to look at one and ignore the other. The symptoms do overlap. So the way to address that is you test both and you treat both if necessary. Now, obviously, if you have a woman that has perfect thyroid function, which I have seen in my practice as well, I'll go, you know what, there's nothing here. Your thyroid looks great, but look at this, you have no hormones whatsoever. So it's the hormones, it's the low hormone function that's causing your symptoms, not the thyroid. Now, we're going to keep an eye on the thyroid for sure, but it's the low hormone function. So you treat what you see. And in order to see it all, you have to test.
You stated at the beginning, actually, the hormonal changes, menopause, and etc. also cause hypothyroidism. If that's causing, means that in every decade almost, it keeps changing. It keeps getting hypoer. I'm inventing a word. It keeps getting lower and lower since the person's metabolism is getting slower when they get older.
Well, it's not if it's left ignored. Okay, whenever you have symptoms, I always say that symptoms are a gift by your body. And that gift is to say, hey, there's something going on that you need to pay attention to. Now, if we ignore that gift, if we ignore our symptoms, they're going to get louder and they're going to get worse. So if ignored, then yes, throughout the years, you will present more and more with more symptoms, and you'll present more with a hypothyroid issue that's being untreated and ignored. So it really is about catching it early and listening to your body when it gives you those signals, and then you test and you treat where appropriate. As we go through the years, yes, some tweaking, just like hormones, just like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, there will be tweaking that we have to do to the protocol. But once we start you on that protocol, that's going to save you big time from the intense symptoms that come along if it's ignored.
State one more time, what are the symptoms that a woman and a man should look into without going to a doctor? And they all don't have that at the same time, I assume.
So, right. I mean, these symptoms that I'm going to rattle off here don't even cover the whole spectrum of symptoms, but I'm going to name the top ones. And I always say, if 3 or more resonate with you, get your ass to the doctor and get your thyroid tested of all the labs that we just said. And then look at your labs from that point of view of optimal, not just normal. We actually have on our website is dramie.com/labs, LABS. So it's DRAMIE.com/LABS. It's an interactive, I built an interactive platform where now, for people in Turkey, I'm not sure of your lab values. You may have to do some conversion to US lab values, but we have an interactive platform where literally you plug in what your lab value is, and it will give you feedback as to what that means. So we cover thyroid, we cover hormones, and we cover insulin and A1C in that platform. So what you want to do is you want to get tested, and you want to know these symptoms: weight gain, inability to lose weight, hair loss, fatigue, that exhaustion, like true full body exhaustion, muscle weakness, muscle soreness, loss of the outer corners of your eyebrows, dry skin. And you can have hair loss overall, or you could have like your hair breaking off or thinning, or it doesn't grow past a certain length. Cold intolerance, heat intolerance, usually a low body temperature, a low heart rate, high or low blood pressure. Frozen shoulder is a big one. Migraines, swelling of your throat, hoarseness, like that dry throat feeling. If you're feeling your throat and you're feeling any lumps or nodules, if you do have a nodule, if you do have a goiter and your doctor told you to just watch and wait and keep an eye on it, that is a huge sign of something going on with your thyroid. So you can see where, since the thyroid is the master gland, it's going to affect every single area of your body. Ooh, constipation is a big one. Bloating, heartburn, digestive issues, because everything is moving through your digestive tract very, very slowly. So it really covers the gamut of head to toe symptoms that can be correlated to the thyroid.
Why is it not that much discussed then? It's so interesting. Each time I watch you, believe me, I watch so many videos of yours. It's like, and also at the conference I did. Watch you, and you keep saying it's the master gland, it's the master gland. If that doesn't work, nothing else works. It's not that much discussed out there, whether among doctors, in the podcast. I mean, unless recently I started seeing, but maybe I started searching for thyroids coming in front of me. When do you think that's going to be the major conversation, like hormone replacement therapy?
Oh, I don't know. I wish I had that answer, because that's the question I ask quite often.
Yeah.
Why? Why in med school do we not have a week or so training in thyroid, right? Because it is the master gland, because it controls so much. And, I don't have the answer. I wish I did, but I don't have the answer. I once spoke to a group of integrative wellness physicians, this is years ago, and I was talking to them about the labs that we need tested. And I talked about being in the Synthroid box. Like, this is all you guys prescribe. There's all these different medications out there. We can combine them in unique and different ways, but this is all you guys prescribe. You're in the Synthroid box. I said, why is that? And the one doc raises his hand and goes, that's all we've learned. So literally, that's all they're learning. And it's a shame. It's a shame.
And it seems like it's not going to change for a while.
Probably not.
What the trainings doesn't change. It's really weird. So you do have a wonderful supplement line. You have all these supportive supplements to these major functions of the body. Do you want to talk about them? We spoke about the T2 hormone or the supplement form a little bit, but there are more, I guess, there.
Yes. So we have the T2, that's in Thyroid Fixer, Metabolism Fixer. We have the black cumin seed oil in Hashimoto's Fixer. I built the Fixer supplement line based on what I kept seeing over and over again in practice, which was even low testosterone in women. So I created Hormone Fixer as a natural testosterone booster for women. And then the supportive nutrients. I'm a firm believer in iodine, magnesium, vitamin D. I think that they're super supportive. We're coming out with a T3 conversion product that does have that little bit of selenium in the form of selenomethianine. We have that in there. We have a little bit of Google extract, ashwagandha. So building that out to help support that T4 to T3 conversion. So really, when I built the Fixer supplement line, it was to address the deficiencies that I see in the practice, and then also the symptoms. And for the masses, if someone can't work with us, I want that to be available. I want T2 to be available to help burn body fat and help with energy. I want Hormone Fixer to be available to help with testosterone if a woman is working with a doctor who doesn't believe in testosterone for women. So that's really why I built that whole line.
It seems like also you built that whole line to support your own clients. And I think you have an institution, correct, about thyroid. Would you like to say the name of the training?
Oh, yeah. We have the Better Thyroid Hormone Institute. Yeah. And our practice will prescribe to all 50 states and parts of Canada. Unfortunately, we can't prescribe overseas. I know we've had many people reach out like, please, will you treat me in the UK and Turkey and Australia? And we just don't have that ability. But that's where the supplements do come in and help. But in the United States, most of Canada, we can order all the testing. We can prescribe bioidentical hormones, peptides, and the most important, the right thyroid medication combination and dose for you to really get you optimized.
Oh, I thought it was an institution I thought that it was a training institution. I didn't realize that it was the institution as a clinic.
Telehealth, yep.
Telehealth.
It's virtual, it's telehealth. Now, in the training realm, I am working because I've also received a lot of requests for practitioner training. So that will probably still be a couple of years down the road, but that is in the pipeline as well. Because I figure, well, okay, while we can prescribe to all 50 states, we still need to train other practitioners who are open-minded, who truly in their heart of hearts want to help people. So we're working on that as well.
So one last question that I have is that, so once it's gone, it's gone. So it never comes back. The hypothyroid never gets back to a normal and you're like, I'm off medication now?
Okay, that's a good question. So I get this question a lot. We can, if we're catching your thyroid condition or your Hashimoto's in the very early stages, then there is a chance that we can reverse that without the need for medication. But you know how we talked about that Hashimoto's is beating up your thyroid gland. So over time, what we'll see is that thyroid, that juicy, plump thyroid gland becomes smaller and jagged, almost like Pac-Man started attacking the outside of it, where there's bites in it. And when it's smaller like that, it's not going to produce the thyroid hormone that it once did. So once it gets to that point, or you're in the latter stages, maybe you've been mistreated or undiagnosed for years, if not decades, at that point of time, we are going to replace it with thyroid hormone, and you're going to be on that the rest of your life. But here's the thing. Who cares? Who cares? You're going to have to prime my thyroid hormone, my T3, out of my dead cold hands if you want to take it away from me, because it gives me life and it gives me quality of life. So why? It's a hormone. We are replacing a hormone that is no longer being properly made. So I'll leave you with this. I'll leave your audience with this. If your child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and the doctor walks in and goes, I'm sorry, your child has type 1 diabetes, they're going to have to be put on insulin, which is a hormone, for the rest of their life in the form of a shot or a pump. But that will save their life and give them quality of life. Would you at that point go, yeah, no, I don't want my kid on a medication because it's a medication? The doctor will go, well, then your child's going to die because you're going to die without insulin. You will die without insulin. You will die without this particular hormone that your body needs. Now, with thyroid, you're not going to die right away, but it will lead to cardiovascular events, increased risk of dementia and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. And again, your quality of life will decrease. And then you're going to be overweight, and obesity has its own set of disease states that follow it. So who cares if you have to take a hormone for the rest of your life if it gives you quality of life?
Yeah. Amie, thank you so much. And can you share your podcast name? Because you have a great podcast that is all thing around. You do one-off recordings. You educate people about thyroid. You also have amazing guests. What was the name of the podcast?
Yes, thank you. It's the Thyroid Fixer Podcast on all podcast platforms. We've been around for, 5 years now. So we have 530 episodes as of today.
Wow. That's great. And we'll add all the links and everything to the show notes. Thank you so much. You're lovely. And it was a joy and a pleasure to see you in front of me. And hopefully we'll meet in another conference. And yes, I'm sure that my audience is going to be super benefiting from this. And I'm almost sure that there are going to be some people want to be getting in touch with you or with one of your practitioners, which is happening lately. Someone that I take it in front of the cameras, someone's like, I would like to be able to their clients, their patients.
That'd be amazing. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.